The Bonesaw is the second dreadnought we have, if you forget the Dreadnought, Dreadnought X, and Breacher Dreadnought, but the point stands that we are having to build a second dreadnought for the next raid, which is happening in just about a week. And today I want to go over the build on the Bonesaw so that you have a good idea of what to do, and you can build this thing to help kill the Vassago's tech depots. As I get started, I want to mention that this build is available in the DerpyTheCow build stock, available 100% for free in the channel description, although it is supported by channel members who are also getting this video earlier, but let's jump right into the build. First things first, do you need to build this ship? And the short answer is yes, because Kixeye is going to require 2 of the 1200 or 1300 level targets and 2 targets for the regular ship this cycle in the raid. So if you want the set bonus of a full 1 million points, 1.25, whatever it is, you're going to need to build the Bonesaw. As you can see, I have mine built here. It is up to E1. I have been upgrading it slowly, and we have not got the strategy guide until earlier today, which is why this video is coming out a little bit later, and it tells us the kinds of things we need to put on our ship. Now, notably, we are also getting a mini VXP weekend at the same time as Conquest, so 2 days after this video comes out, which will let people go through and test in the particular VXP targets. I wish maybe it even came out last week because we need to see the targets before we need to be able to figure out a build for this one. That being said, I'm pretty confident in the build for this because, well, it has just come out and the strategy guide has some useful information, but there are a few minor tweaks, mostly related to armors, which you could consider. Just going over the initial stats, it only has E1 through E5. We'll get E6 through E10 later, and we'll take times, and I have to get a times table put together here. But all things considered, you unlock more weapons, more armors, you get the captain, which is only the gold one, and then crews, which can go any of them as you keep upgrading this thing there. We've got tons of building damage that's not anything new for Siege, that's actually pretty standard. Evade on here, some survival on here initially, which is pretty nice, and then that's about it. There are some special abilities which are pretty exciting in terms of a straight up damage number, but the interesting thing about these special abilities is that you cannot buff them with reload, with damage type, with splash, anything, so nothing you can put on your specials, etc. is going to affect that, and you actually can't put on any countermeasures at all on this entire ship, which means that the build is actually relatively straightforward. Let's jump into that now. So on the weapon slots, you want to use the best possible weapons you have in terms of the Teeth Taker chain gun, which is a really weird word to write down. I have a few legendary ones. I'm just going to throw those on there. I definitely don't even have enough weapons to equip every slot so far because I've upgraded this thing to like E1 or E2. I think I only have like 15 chests and I need like 16 weapon slots. I didn't even bother getting the common one. Regardless, just put on the best weapons you have out here. If it's just the common one, that's totally fine. If it happens to be all legendary in 3 months from now, that's even better. Now is probably a good time to mention that you can actually refit if you equip all commons. You can refit to legendary, to epic, uncommon, etc. totally for free, no change in terms of duration, which will work with the armors too, although there is, again, a little bit of a caveat to that one. Basically, use the best weapon you have. It's not rocket science, and if you only have epics, if you only have uncommons, put those ones on for now, and then refit as you continue, and if you decide you want to spend extra points to get these things. Looking at the damage, it's 165k at the lowest level, up to 180, 200, and then 220. No crazy changes, but again, every little bit percentage increase does totally help. And there's going to be like 10 things you can do to make this ship 10% stronger. Let's now shift to talking about the armors, because those are pretty easy. Basically, throw on half ballistic and half radioactive. You could probably guess and try and say, oh, from the strategy guide, it looks like we'll go more radioactive, more ballistic. I'm going to keep it easy, stick 50-50, mostly because I will be able to get chests of the same number each type, which means I'll have like 20 chances to get a ballistic chest, 20 chances to get a radioactive chest, and therefore I can get higher chances at getting the legendary or the rare or the epic if I open the same numbers. I don't really try and guess on damage types anymore because when I did, it was basically always wrong. I'm going to throw in 2 ballistic plates on here and 2 radioactive ones. It is important to note that you don't want to, you can't actually switch between radioactive and ballistic for free. I can only upgrade this radioactive uncommon to a radioactive legendary. I can't upgrade it to a ballistic legendary per se. I'm going to go ahead and throw on just a legendary one. So if you're copying the hash code, again, available totally for free in the build stock, you'll get the best possible one. Although obviously nobody has a legendary at this point, so just put on the best things that you do have. And add those to the extra armor slots as these do come out, because taking things off is free, putting them back on from a blank is not. Okay, let's now switch to talking about specials. This is also a good point to note that Kixeye has released escalation specials. The previous Dreadnought we had, which was the Agamemnon, something like that. Never figured out how to pronounce that one. So it's very possible that we'll get an update on the Bloodtaker engine, which is called like the Blood Maker, something else super weird that has a slight increase on some of these stats. Now, the thing with Dreadnoughts is that a lot of the stuff is class locked to Dreadnoughts, which means that you can put Dreadnought skirmish tech on a Siege Dreadnought. You definitely don't want to do that, so it's a little bit harder than previous builds where you just use like the newest limited things and you're fine. You just have to pay a little bit more attention. In terms of the specific tech you want to put on, I'm going to use an engine first off. This is the Tier 13 Bloodtaker engine for the Dreadnought. If you don't have this one, put on the next best available Siege one, which might be the Overpower engine. I'm not really going to look too hard because most people probably got this one in Pillage. After the engine, let's go ahead and look at some of the other new tech that we kind of got recently that we can use on the Dreadnought here. Jumping over to blueprint stuff, there's the sacrificial cartridge, which is projectile speed, ballistic damage, building damage. This is high velocity rounds like version 7 at this point. Those are all great stats that you definitely want to have on this ship. Super helpful if you don't have this. There's a little bit older stuff that you could look at. Just search the stats here, like ballistic damage, and put on the highest ballistic damage special you can find. Jumping over back to limited, we're going to throw on a few more of the cool orange things because I think that putting on like all orange at the top makes the whole look a little bit nicer. You'll notice that if you looked at my normal build for the normal ship this season. I'm going to use the full throttle exhaust, which is Siege or Dreadnought, ballistic damage, evade, and combat speed. It's like very possible we get an escalation to this one that is the tier 13.5 Dreadnought special, so keep your eyes peeled for that in month 2, month 3, etc. Usually they're a pretty quick change and people have lots of extra regular build tokens, not so much upgrade tokens at that point. Special slot number 4, we're going to dip down into using some of the cool blue stuff. This is going to be the B13 cassette loader. Just came out at tier 13, and this is a cannon critical chance of 45%, which is huge. Critical damage is a little bit bugged and is basically always double, not plus 2.25 or not plus 1.25. Just keep that in mind if you're running any sort of numbers on that. Haven't actually verified that in a while. If someone else wants to play count the crit, you're welcome to, but at minimum this gives you a ton of extra reload and reduces your reload time while giving you projectile speed and cannon critical chance for sure, which is very, very helpful. We can also boost a few more damage stats by using something like Ballistic Battery 3. This thing is overall pretty nice, gives you ballistic damage, 35%, and doubles your building damage. So again, that's like always a good thing to use for Ballistic Battery. All the other stuff shown up here is skirmish. You don't want to use any of that. If you don't have Ballistic Battery 3, take a look at the next highest building damage special. It might be Ballistic Battery 2, might be Radioactive Battery, Siege Battery, something else like that. Should be pretty up there if you don't have this one. Although it is pretty old, tier 11.5, you probably have it. The last thing we're going to use is also a special we were using on our standard ships and is one that we may get an escalation for. This is actually a very, very important one. It's the Revenge Cannon system, which has plus 50% ballistic range, which is super, super important. You totally need ballistic range with this stuff because you want to outrange a ton of the short-range turrets which are in these targets. So there's the build except for the CICs. This is a super weird ship with the CICs, and I can actually see it because I'm refitting one that's upgrading to E2 right now, so I can click on this one. The CICs, you're going to want to use the limited one, as strange as it sounds, which is going to be the, let's see if I can pronounce this word, tendon chop. Not quite sure who came up with these. What's going to be next? The ligament licker? Not really sure on that one. But this CIC does have a duplicate ore cap of 3, which means that you can put it on 3 times on this one ship, and then it will apply to itself, which is the one ship in the fleet. It gives it evade, cool, that's nice, whatever. Ballistic damage, building damage, and not too bad there, except we have a 23-day build time for this ship, Luckily, I will tell you, I got a 7-day token in last week's Forsaken mission, and I told myself that I would either buy a lottery ticket or quit when I got one. I put a poll up on TFC if you want to vote and tell me which one I should do, and I will abide by the results of that poll. Regardless, here's the build for the Bonesaw. Obviously, as I get more armors, I will continue to add more of them. Again, I like doing 50-50 on that, ballistic and radioactive. As I get more weapons, I'll put more of those in there. As I get more CICs, guess what? I'll put in more CICs. Now, we don't yet know the stats on the crew. There likely are going to be some crews that are better or worse than others because of the particular stats. Maybe evade is nice, maybe damage is nice. We don't really know that yet because we haven't got the chance to use this ship in the target. Furthermore, I'm not going to recommend a specific crew over any others because I'm likely going to roll or get chests until I get 3 good enough crews and then stop. I did that last time. I had 1 silver and 2 gold crews. Just keep in mind the captain crew is the E2 one. The only one that can go in, or the only one that captains can go in, is this one. I'm just going to get 3 crews that are good enough and then stop buying chests. I'm not going to try and get the gold captain and the silver or like particular crews at this point. We don't even really know what they are. If you do have any questions on the Bonesaw build, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. The other thing I will point out is that we get the mini VXP weekend next week, and actually Billy the mod was using evade armors instead on here. I don't think evade is going to be very useful on this particular ship because everything in the strategy guide had both accuracy and splash pretty much, which means if they miss, they're still exploding something right next to you and doing damage to you on that one. He could be using that for extra speed or combat speed or turn speed, which may be useful in these targets. I haven't looked at them and played with them at this point yet, so I can't really tell you on that one. If you do have any questions on this, go ahead and let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I want to give a huge shout out to the channel members whose names appear on the end screen now. They're helping make videos like this one possible, and again, even got early access to this one. With that said, and until next time, this is going to be Derpy, signing out, helping you be a better pirate.